And welcome back to a special KHTS broadcast with Alex Urbina and Perry Smith, right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today's show is about mental illness, and special guest in studio, we have Michael Doherty from Henry Mayo. He's over there at the Behavioral Health Unit, supporting us there. We also have on the phone Missy Bryant sharing her story with us. Missy, are you still on the line?
I still am.
You know what I'm interested in is... In the article that I read, it said that you were off your meds for about 6 months.
At least.
Now, what I'm wondering, and because I have a personal experience of my dad who had cancer, it was stage 4, and he was on medication for a while, and he said his pain was like at a level 2, and at a certain point, he started to think to himself like, hey, I got this. I'm feeling pretty good, and decided to take himself off the medication without letting nobody know until all of a sudden one night he was in excruciating pain that we had to take him to a pain specialist, and the pain specialist was yelling at me and my mom for not knowing that he took himself off, and kind of explained to us that the way you take somebody off medication is you either wean them out, but the wake-up call that we had about medication that stays in your system and is designed to work consistently. And it sounds like you kind of did that. You decided at a certain point that you didn't want it, didn't need it, or the side effects were too overbearing for you, and you just decided not to take it anymore.
Yeah, and it's indicative, especially of bipolar disorder, for people to all of a sudden think, well, I feel great. I don't need it anymore. But the reason why we feel great is because of the medication. So it's kind of silly. So it's just because you're feeling better. It's because of the medication. So don't stop. That's my biggest message is don't stop taking your medication. That is why you're feeling better. That is why you're feeling more normal, more grounded, more level. That's the reason why. When you stop that, everything goes wrong.
And Alex, your story brings up an excellent point, and Missy, you touched on this earlier about the importance of having that that support group, that immediate people you trust, people you can depend on to go to. For yourself and your situation, how did your family initially react, and how do you think for those listening who might be who might know someone who's going through this or going through this themselves? How do you have that conversation with your family, and how does what's a positive reaction? What can family members say to someone who's hearing that? Because I would imagine it might be difficult not only to say, obviously, but to also to hear as someone you care about.
Well, absolutely, and I got to tell you, I don't have there's not always the best reaction to it because it just means that's who you are and you're just crazy. But it's hard for people to accept the fact that you are mentally ill. It is a disease of the brain, the most vital organ in our body, but it's the most... People generally think that it's an excuse, and it's not. It's an actual chemical reaction. There's misfiring of the synapses. It's all very scientific, and I'm not going to get into that, but it is a real disorder. It is a real illness, and when you tell people, they're shocked because they don't think that somebody they know could have something like that. But the truth is, 1 out of every 3 have been diagnosed with some sort of mental illness. Now, when people finally come to the agreement that, okay, this makes more sense and this is why this is happening, I have had the pleasure of my family embracing it and getting me the help that I needed. I'm in an outpatient treatment center. I do day treatment. I have a very active, proactive psychiatrist, and I'm sure your guest at Henry Mayo knows Dr. Arjun Reyes.
Very well.
He has been my doctor since I was about 18, and I'm 44 now. So he knows me like the back of his hand. And to have a good doctor, and when you seek a doctor, make sure they listen to you. Make sure they know what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Don't just let them be med goers. They need to know everything about you, and don't just accept any pills they throw at you, because if they are not listening to you and what's going on, it's going to be ineffective. And you don't want to be over medicated. You don't want to be under medicated, but you especially don't want to be misdiagnosed and mismedicated and under medicated, wrongly medicated. And it is a lab rat situation, because in maybe 2 years this combination will no longer work for me because of you get a tolerance. There's all that. So you got to start all over again, and it might not work for a while. And you got to keep trying, but don't give up because one day there will be another cocktail that will work for you.
And so it's really about being honest with that conversation with your doctor and making sure, that you're communicating what you're feeling too. Is part of it for engaging in that proper diagnosis?
Absolutely. Be nothing but honest. They cannot hurt you. I mean, if you say you're going to kill yourself, they can 5150 you. They have to. But if you're having those feelings, be honest about them because they're true feelings, and maybe you do need a little help. But in getting that help, being 5150, which is a 72-hour hold, they can try to get the medication that you need to help balance you out. So never lie. Never mislead a doctor. Tell them exactly what's going on with you. Tell them exactly what you're feeling, hearing, seeing. Tell them everything about you, the trauma, everything. Make them listen to you. You are not just a herd of cattle, and don't accept 5 minutes with them and they know your diagnosis and know what pills you need to take because they might be wrong. They are not always right, and make them listen to you because they get paid a lot of money to be these drug dealers, but they really have to know what to prescribe for your symptoms. And if you are not honest, they cannot do their job effectively.
Missy, thank you for that. We're going to go on a short break. You're listening to a special KHTS broadcast. Stay tuned for more. You're listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And welcome back to a special KHTS broadcast with Alex Urbina and Perry Smith right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Today we're talking about mental illness, and we have a special guest in studio, Michael Dougherty from the Behavioral Health Unit at Henry Mayo. And we also have Missy Bryant on the line. Thank you again for calling in. I have a question regarding the people in your inner circle, Missy. And I'm earlier you said that you have to trust them that they're going to give you the right advice or they're going to give you the right interpretations about what's going on versus what you could be making up. But could there be a possibility sometimes that your inner circle or your go-to people are giving you some advice that's a little skewed? Like, could they be telling you that maybe, that you're doing good, that you don't need the medication, and kind of be a part of a decision that you make that doesn't favor you?
A lot of times people have done that. They've tried to tell me, oh, you don't need that medication because all you need to do is exercise, eat right, this kind of thing, that kind of thing. But at this point in my life, I know, I don't even debate it. I know that Missy off of medication is Missy a crazy girl, and Missy kidnaps people at gunpoint. So, I know even eating well and exercising and, having people in my circle, a lot of them have tried to do other alternate methods of trying to, cure me. Well, this is not to be cured. This is not curable. It's manageable with medication and a small village of support group. And those people that try to tell you that medication is not the way to go are no longer in my circle.
Is that a common thing, Michael, that you see at the hospital where people will say that their family also advised or concurred with them that it's okay to stop their medications?
Right. There's basically two things. And, of course, getting off the medication is the number one reason that we see people come back into our unit. One would be that they themselves decided, hey, I'm doing really well, I don't need this anymore, and they get off their meds and they find themselves in trouble. The other one is family members or a friend may say, hey, you're doing really well, and this stuff is kind of expensive. You don't need it anymore. You're good. And if, Missy has a lot of experience, and so she can say, hey, this is bad advice. I need to move on and not listen to this. But there are people out there. Missy, what would you say to those people out there that are kind of new at this, and how do they need to have their radar up so that they can discern who's a good person to have in their circle and who isn't?
The people that tell them to stop taking medication are bad people to have in their lives. You have to have positive people in their lives that encourage treatment, that encourage not isolating, that encourage to pick up the phone, that encourage to reach out, that encourage all the treatment that the doctors have planned out for them. They are not doctors. They are trying to, this new holistic thing, which is not all bad in like dieting and that kind of thing. But when it comes to mental illness, medication and a support system is key.
Now, that's important once you've been diagnosed with mental illness. Now, what's running through my mind as a life coach is a lot of times I'll have people say I'm depressed, and there's a fine line between healthy people being depressed and figuring out how to do some self-awareness work on yourself to get your power back and move forward, versus there's a good possibility that there's some mental illness and go get diagnosed, go get treated, go to a doctor, go get some professional advice.
Right. Well, again, for depression, there's a big difference between just being down, because everybody has a down day. I mean, you get up in the morning and you something happens and everything is falling and it's just not working for you, and you say, wow, what a crummy day, and then the next day's crummy and the next day's crummy. That can happen. But when it happens for, let's say, 2 or more weeks, then you're probably looking at clinical depression. And if it is clinical depression, you need professional help.
The reason why I'm saying that is because on my end, if I have someone that I love that I feel that they're healthy and strong enough, and they come to me and they say I've been depressed the last couple months, there's a part of me that wants to say, you're fine, you're strong, as a friend, as a family member, you want to fight for them, but there's that fine line that you have to be open to the possibility that, hey, you should go get checked. Go to get a professional, get looked at by a professional and see.
If it's been going on for a couple of months and they're clinically depressed, it's impossible for them to quote unquote pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They can't do it. They have to have help.
When we come back from the break, what I'd love to talk about is how do we empower our loved ones if we feel like they are clinically depressed too long or might have some mental illness and need some support. How can we empower them or inspire them to want to take that step for themselves? Stay tuned for more right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.